This presentation is a result of my being asked by the foundation and some of our donors to think about how you would implement a Robin Hood Foundation such as they have in New York City in Chicago. And so the problem I was faced with is a problem that everybody except the federal government in the era of ARA is faced with, which is you can't do everything. So among many of the different kinds of things that have been talked about today and some other things that probably haven't been yet, I think is this on the timer? It was. Is it moving? Okay. Well, the problem is that you've got, I'll put this down. We'll go for it. You got a whole lot of different kinds of choices that are all interlocked, as any of us who've read or thought about this know, and you've got to decide where the most important ones are, where the ones that you would start with are, how they relate to the ultimate goal of reducing poverty. And so the work that I did incorporates thinking about how the systems in and around Chicago actually operate, what the research literature says in peer-reviewed studies about what actually works and the types of return that you could possibly get on it. And so we think about, I think there's at least 3 different ways to think about poverty. The first is sort of and sort of working with the idea of the poverty line is defining it. But the first is the idea that poverty line is about, escaping poverty is about getting more money. And this is not going the way I taught. So one set of poverty strategies leads to adding money to people. A second way to think about it is, which has been brought up, is that if you can't add more, you can make life cheaper to live, which is the second way of making money go further. The third way is to simply say people are going to be poor, and if you read the happiness literature, and there's an emerging literature in sociology and economics about what actually makes people more. It's not that. It's not even. I think that's easier. All right. The third way is that you could not change a person's financial situation at all, but you could get people to stop shooting each other. You could improve health care. You could have them live in communities that work well. And the research suggests that those are, in fact, the things that ultimately make people happier. We wanted to get a grip on exactly how many people are in different categories. That's actually important. Solving poverty isn't just a uniform thing. It depends on who you're talking about. And the strategies around working with the disabled, working with the homeless, working with people that don't speak English are all different. Single parents require a different strategy than a grandparent does or someone who is retired. But the solutions to poverty for different populations are different. It's not the same solution for everybody. But we also have to understand how it all works. And this is sort of a verbal presentation of something that's actually an equation. The number of poor people you have in any place is actually a result of this equation, which is to say there are poor people that come into a place, there are poor people that leave, there are poor people that are born, there are poor people who die, there are people that get more money, there are people who lose money. And the number of poor people that you have in any place is a sum of all of those things netted against one another. And so as if you're actually trying to reduce that number and know how you did it, it's important to know which of these boxes is moving in what way. A number of considerations from an economic perspective have to be taken into consideration if you're going to actually be effective. First, an intervention must affect the net poverty of a region. It's not just about helping an individual person, but a net. You have to consider the present value against the future. You have to understand the importance of multiple barriers, business cycles. Demography actually makes a huge difference. And you also have to recognize that a lot of poor people are already working. The issue of the net. It reduces to this very simple question that a lot of labor market intermediaries do not think about. It's the problem of one way to count poverty result is to just think about the person you found a job for. But the question is, what about all the other people that you didn't? Did you actually reduce the net number of unemployed in a place? And the answer, unfortunately, for a lot of intermediaries is no, you didn't actually. Net poverty is reduced when one of these 8 things happens. It has to be one of these 8. You have to give someone more money. You have to have actually created a new job. You have to have reduced labor market friction sufficient that you would have added a new job at some point. You have to have changed family composition such that a family that was poor isn't, or that a family that is not poor doesn't fall in. But at least one of these 8 things has to happen or you haven't actually reduced poverty. We have to account for the future in appropriate ways. The evaluation of any anti-poverty program has to be discounted in the proper way. That includes accounting for uncertainty of an outcome, the alternative use of a resource, and whatever our value is of helping people we actually know now against those who might be born in the future. People are poor for a lot of different reasons. This number 2 point, I think, is the most important of these, which is the probability of success with any individual varies inversely with the number of problems that they have. So you have to count for that. This is a chart where I actually took the census data and counted how many people had different kinds of multiple barriers. And as the green bars suggest, the strategies are different for people in different situations. We have to count for the business cycle because every 4 or 5 years, we gain a whole lot of jobs and we lose a whole lot. A lot of the work that we do gets wiped out every time there's a recession. We want solutions that actually carry over from one recession to another. Demography makes a difference. A poor family is right on the edge of the poverty line. The next child they have throws them into poverty. We can make account of that. It makes a big difference in the number of poor people, how large a family is that is right at the poverty line. The return on investment issue, I think, goes to a close reading of the academic literature, or other kinds of formal evaluations are done so that we're not just going on reputation, but so we're actually using data. The work I did for the trust then took all of these different things and rated all of the different kinds of interventions one could have, so that we can look at the sorting displacement effects, which is that issue of net productivity. These are the different things that have to do with whether a job actually decreases poverty. Then we wanted to consider also the place of systems to account for what you might do. And finally, you can kind of rate it. Whether it sorts, whether the impact endures, whether there's a return on investment, whether you could actually do the thing, whether it would create jobs, whether there's direct money to a client, whether you're dealing with multiple barriers, and finally, most importantly, how certain you are of the outcome. Am I guessing, or do I kind of really know? And this is what you finally get. Public education, early childhood, electronic benefits, access to English as a second language, development of businesses, targeted job training. And I think in some areas you could not responsibly go to scale based on what we know. We need more high-quality evaluations dealing with offenders, dealing with the teen pregnancy issue, and the efficacy of financial skills training.